The headlines. U.S. President Donald Trump arrived in Japan for a 4-day trip. The United States announces it is deploying 1,500 additional troops to the Middle East in response to what the Pentagon calls a campaign of recent attacks approved by Iran's top leadership. And the race to become new British leader opens with promises by a handful of hopefuls to succeed where Theresa May failed and finally pull the dividend country out of the EU. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. U.S. President Donald Trump arrived in Japan Saturday for a 4-day trip. Air Force One touched down in Japan just before 5 p.m. local time on a sunny Tokyo afternoon. Japanese and U.S. officials hail as unprecedented the relationship between Trump and his Gulf buddy, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and the pair will again find time for a round to cement their diplomatic romance. The official centerpiece is Trump's meeting on Monday with Japan's new Emperor Naruhito, who only ascended the chrysanthemum throne at the beginning of the month following his father's historic abdication for health reasons.
I'm going to be with Japan, as you know. I'm going there on Friday. Many of you are going to be coming with us, and it's a very big thing going on with the Emperor. It's something that hasn't happened in over 200 years. I am the guest, meaning the United States is the guest, but Prime Minister Abe said to me very specifically, you are the guest of honor. There's only one guest of honor. You are the guest of honor. I represent the country. With all the countries of the world, I'm the guest of honor at the biggest event that they've had in over 200 years. So it's a great thing, and we get along very well with Japan. I get along very well with the Prime Minister, so we're going to be spending 2 days over there.
But the visual highlight is more likely to be Trump's visit on Sunday to the final day of the Summer Bash Show or sumo tournament, where he is expected to present the cup to the winner. The leaders will play golf before going to the sumo and then repair with their wives to a restaurant in Tokyo's Roppongi Entertainment District, where the menu features skewers of prime sirloin beef at $47 for two. Prime Minister Abe has just recently returned from Washington, and President Trump himself will be returning to Japan in just over a month for the Group of 20 leader summit in the western city of Osaka. In other news, Cyril Ramaphosa has taken the oath and has officially been sworn in as the President of the Republic of South Africa at the inauguration ceremony at Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria, where the crowd signaled their approval with deafening cheers. Take a look. The 66-year-old leader was unanimously elected by Parliament after his African National Congress, or ANC, won legislative elections on May 8, winning 230 of the 400 seats. The victory was earned with 57.5% of the vote, the party's lowest share of the ballot since it overturned apartheid 25 years ago. Ramaphosa is a trade unionist who played a prominent part in the struggle to end white minority rule before becoming a successful businessman. His inauguration speech will be scrutinized for clues as to how he plans to tackle the country's many problems. They range from a sickly economy in which more than a quarter of the workforce is jobless, to entrenched crime and corruption and land ownership that remains overwhelmingly in the hands of whites. In other news, police in France were hunting a suspect following a blast in a pedestrian street in the heart of Lyon that likely wounded 13 people 2 days ahead of hotly contested European Parliament elections. President Emmanuel Macron called the explosion from a package believed to have been packed with shrapnel, an attack, and sent Interior Minister Christophe Castaner to Lyon. Police issued an appeal for witnesses on Twitter as they sought the man believed to be in his early 30s who was picked up by security cameras on a mountain bicycle immediately before the explosion. An image of the suspect wearing light-colored shorts and a long-sleeve dark top was posted. He was described as dangerous. Justice Minister Nicole Belloubet told BFM television it was too soon to say whether the blast was a terrorist act. The case was nonetheless handed to the Paris prosecutor for anti-terrorism that deal with all terrorist cases. The number of wounded stood at 13 people, with 11 taken to hospitals. None of the injuries was life-threatening, but included 8 women and a 10-year-old girl as well as 4 men. A police source said the package contained screws or bolts. It had been placed in front of a bakery near a busy corner of 2 crowded streets at around 17:30 p.m. France has been on high alert following a wave of deadly jihadist terror attacks since 2015, which have killed more than 250 people. U.S. President Donald Trump and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi traded insults, each questioning the other's mental stability. A meeting reportedly ended when Trump stormed out before holding a hastily called press conference to say he wouldn't work with Democrats until they stop investigating him. Thursday, U.S. time, was the second straight day of a very public war of words between President Trump and the House Speaker of Representatives, who earlier questioned the president's mental fitness for office and expressed hope that those close to Trump would stage an intervention for the good of the country. And Trump responded by branding Nancy Pelosi Crazy Nancy. Take a look.
Yesterday, as you know, Democrats went to the White House prepared to offer the president the opportunity to launch an historic infrastructure initiative. We had met 3 weeks before. Well, everyone, he started sending signals that he might not be ready or interested. The night before, he sent us a letter to Chuck Schumer and to me saying that he doesn't want to do infrastructure until we do the U.S., Mexico, Canada. If that's not the accurate, some people call it position, but nonetheless, the next day, you know what happened. I think what happened, he says it's because of cover-up, and I know that strikes a chord with him, and he's afraid of cover-up. I truly believe that the president has a bag of tricks, and the White House has a bag of tricks that they save for certain occasions. They don't necessarily apply to the occasion, but they're a distraction, which is his master of distraction.
They're being very nice to her because they really, she's a mess. Look, let's face it, she doesn't understand it. And they sort of feel she's disintegrating before the rush. She does not understand it. They want to have her understand it before it's finished. It's signed, as you know. Mexico's approved the deal. Canada's approved the deal. And they're waiting to get a signal for her. Pelosi does not understand the bill. She doesn't understand it. Even though unions are in favor of it, farmers, everybody just about is in favor of it. It's a replacement for, as I said, the worst trade deal ever made. So she's got to get up to snuff, learn the bill. And by the way, I think she wants to approve it. I think. But so Bob Lighthizer, who you can speak to if you want, he's waiting to get the okay from her to send it in. But we're at a point where we're just going to have to send it in. It's all ready.
How long will you wait, sir?
Well, he said she'd like to have 2 weeks to get to know the bill. I think that's a long time. I think it's a do-nothing Congress. The Democrats have done nothing in the House. They've done absolutely nothing. They don't get it. I mean, other than investigate. They want to, let's investigate. After the Mueller report came out, no collusion, no obstruction, no nothing. Let's start it all over again. They weren't too happy, so they want to just keep it going. And what that does is it takes up tremendous time and energy, and they've done absolutely, I mean, it's just been it's been very bad.
But the president, again, stormed out. I think, first pound the table, walk out the door. What? Next time, have the TV cameras in there while I have my say. And now this time, another temper tantrum. Again, I pray for the President of the United States. I wish that his family or his administration or his staff would have an intervention for the good of the country.
She said I walked into the room right next door yesterday and walked in and started screaming and yelling. Just the opposite. Just the opposite. Because I know that they will always say that, even if it didn't happen, because this happened once before. I walked out, I was so calm. You all saw me minutes later. I was at a news conference. I was extremely calm. I was probably even more so in that room. So I walked into the cabinet room. You had the group, Crying Chuck, Crazy Nancy. I tell you what, I've been watching her, and I have been watching her for a long period of time. She's not the same person. She's lost it.
Meanwhile, White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders said that it's insane to think infrastructure talks can still continue after Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi accused President Trump of a cover-up. Sanders also insisted that Trump's walkout wasn't planned before Pelosi's comments. Asked why Trump couldn't work with Democrats after Pelosi's comments because he felt insulted, Sanders said this.
That sink in. She didn't say, I don't like you. She accused him of committing a crime after we spent 2 years going through this exhaustive investigative process with Bob Mueller and his team. We've spent millions and millions of taxpayer dollars. We've spent a number of hours sending individuals to testify, 500 different witnesses, dozens of subpoenas. It's not like this was a one-day event. This has taken 2 years in which the president has been relentlessly attacked, and you guys have breathlessly covered every single minute and moment, hoping, waiting to find out that the president of the United States committed a crime. And now people are disappointed to find out that he didn't. At some point, you have to accept that it just didn't happen, and it's time to move on.
The United States announced it was deploying 1,500 additional troops to the Middle East in response to what the Pentagon called a campaign of recent attacks approved by Iran's top leadership.
We want to have protection in the Middle East. We're going to be sending a relatively small number of troops, mostly protective, and some very talented people are going to the Middle East right now, and we'll see what happens. It'll be about 1,500 people.
The escalation of the U.S. military presence follows a decision in early May to send an aircraft carrier strike force and B-52 bombers in a show of force against what Washington's leaders believed was an imminent Iranian plan to attack U.S. assets. The new deployment includes reconnaissance aircraft, fighter jets, and engineers. 600 of the personnel belong to a Patriot missile defense battalion that had its deployment in the region extended. Pentagon officials said the move was necessary after multiple threatening actions and several small in-scope attacks in May by Iranian forces, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and proxy forces. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said a U.S. decision to deploy 1,500 additional troops to the Middle East is a, quote, threat to international peace. Increased U.S. presence in our region is very dangerous and a threat to international peace and security and must be confronted, Zarif told the official IRNA news agency before heading home from a visit to Pakistan. Washington said the reinforcements, which come after the deployment earlier this month of an aircraft carrier task force, B-52 bombers, an amphibious assault ship, and a missile defense system, are in response to a campaign of recent attacks approved by Iran's top leadership. Now, those included a rocket launched into the green zone in Baghdad, explosive devices that damaged 4 tankers near the entrance to the Gulf, and a drone attack by Yemeni rebels on a key Saudi oil pipeline. Now, Iran has denied involvement in any of the attacks. Now, a Saudi tanker that was damaged off the coast of the United Arab Emirates in mid-May appears to have leaked a trail of oil, according to satellite images released on Friday. Radar satellites operated by the Finnish company ICE-YE photographed the vessel Amjad on May 14, 2 days after it and 3 other ships, including another Saudi tanker, were mysteriously sabotaged in the Sea of Oman. The strikes on the ships were followed 2 days later by drone attacks on the key Saudi east-west oil pipeline, which Saudi Arabia denounced as an attack on the security of the world's oil supplies. Yemen's Houthi rebels claimed responsibility for the strikes and said they were a response to crimes committed by Saudi Arabia and its allies during more than 4 years of war in support of the government. The Saudi cabinet called for confronting terrorist entities which carry out such sabotage attacks, including the Iran-backed Houthi militias in Yemen. Saudi Arabia, the world's largest exporter of oil, currently pumps around 10 million barrels per day, of which around 7 million barrels per day are exported. And the news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back.
Health is our most important asset, and it should always be a constant effort to seek ways to take care of it. That includes professional medical help from the best available. The Manila Beijing Medical Associated Incorporated is known as one of the most specialized centers in medical services backed
Brexit shrouded in uncertainty. A tearful May announced her resignation on Friday, leaving the Brexit process for exiting the European Union in limbo and raising the risk of Britain crashing out of the bloc in a few months.
I will shortly leave the job that it has been the honour of my life to hold. The second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
Now, May will step down as Conservative leader on June 7, but stay on as Prime Minister until party members have chosen her successor, which will happen by July 20. Britain's EU departure date is currently fixed for October 31, although any new leader could ask for a further delay. Former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson is the bookmakers' odds-on favorite, ahead of former Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab. Both have embraced the prospect of a no-deal Brexit, but whoever takes over from May will, like her, face the same razor-thin majority in Parliament, an EU with no intention of changing the divorce offer that MPs have rejected 3 times, and proponents both for and against Brexit who will never compromise. Raab, as well as Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt and Environment Secretary Michael Gove, all held off from throwing their hats in the ring on Friday, but are widely expected to stand. The next Prime Minister of the UK, a country of more than 66 million people, will be decided by the 100,000 or so paid-up members of the Conservative Party. And although Boris Johnson may be the front runner to replace Theresa May as British Prime Minister after she announced she will be stepping down on June 7th, an analyst says that front runners are rarely the people who win in Conservative Party leadership campaigns. Take a listen.
I think she will be remembered only by Brexit. It's engulfed her entire nearly 3 years of being Prime Minister. Everything else is being pushed to one side. British government is almost entirely incapable of doing anything other than Brexit at any point. And she will be remembered for that, and indeed, as she said herself in the speech, for having not delivered it. But I think history will be a little bit kinder in future, in the sense that she will have been seen to have tried her best in almost impossible circumstances, and we always get some credit for that. Well, there's a lot of runners and riders in this particular race. Probably the favourite amongst certainly Conservative Party members, if not members of Parliament, is Boris Johnson, former Foreign Minister, former Mayor of London for 8 years. He'd probably certainly be the party membership's choice, but as I say, not necessarily members of Parliament. It's worth remembering with Conservative Party leadership campaigns in the UK that the front runners rarely are the people who win. That's normally what happens. The next leader of the Conservative Party leads exactly the same size Conservative Party group, which is a minority in the House of Commons, relying on the support of a Northern Irish minority party, the Democratic Unionists. All of that stays the same. The opposition called for a general election. They remain the same. So actually the parliamentary layout is not different at all. The question then is, could a new Prime Minister go back to the EU 27 and get a different deal that will be more attractive to Parliament?
Meanwhile, the British Labour Party opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn speaks to press after Theresa May announced her resignation effective June 7th. And Corbyn calls for a general election and a change of direction for Britain.
Then I think we've got to recognise there is a need for a change of direction in this country.
Do you think?
And she's not offered it. And I'd be very surprised if any of her successors offered it. But the reality is, a new Conservative leader isn't going to solve the problem. There has to be another opportunity for the people of this country to decide who they want to be in their government, how they want the government to be run, what the long-term strategy is of that government. I think we need a general election. We don't need another Tory leader installed by Tory MPs.
Now, speaking about the resignation of the British Prime Minister, U.S. President Trump says, "I feel badly for Theresa." Take a look.
I feel badly for Teresa. I like her very much. She's a good woman. She worked very hard. She's very strong. She decided to do something that some people were surprised at, some people weren't. It's for the good of her country. But I like her very much. In fact, I'll be seeing her in 2 weeks.
In other news, President Nicolas Maduro says he will invest with Chinese and Russian companies to increase Venezuela's telecommunications capabilities and bring 4G to the entire country during the Fair of Innovation, Science and Technology of the FANB, National Bolivarian Armed Forces of Venezuela in Caracas. Take a look.
Y ha ordenado hacer una inversión inmediata junto a nuestros hermanos chinos y la tecnología de China, la tecnología de Huawei, de ZTE y de todas las empresas chinas y de todas las empresas rusas para nosotros elevar las capacidades de telecomunicaciones y hacer realidad en Venezuela el sistema 4G a nivel nacional.
The United States calls Huawei a threat to national security and has put the company on a blacklist that effectively bars U.S. firms from selling it computer chips and other components without government approval. According to Sputnik News reports, the Venezuelan leader stated Caracas currently is aiming at developing its satellite technologies and program. Meanwhile, opposition leader Juan Guaido accused the president, Nicolas Maduro, of being in, quote, absolute disconnection with the crisis that overwhelms Venezuelans after the president announced investments in defense and telecommunications. Take a look.
Alguien debe revisar los recursos de ese señor. O buscar un mejor psiquiatra que el que ya tiene. Porque es evidente la desconexión absoluta con la realidad. Porque en ocasiones sentimos que un día más, sin agua, sin luz, sin gasolina, es demasiado. Y lo es. Y lo es.
At least 29 prisoners were killed and 19 police wounded in clashes at a jail in western Venezuela on Friday, according to authorities. The incident at the police station jail in the town of Acarigua in Portuguesa state occurred when police special forces tried to stop a massive prison break, which resulted in the deaths of 29 inmates, according to Portuguesa Public Security Secretary Oscar Valero. The prisoners received the officers with a hail of gunfire while detonating 3 grenades, which injured 19 police, according to Valero. Violence is a problem in such detention facilities where inmates are supposed to be held for a maximum of 48 hours, Una Ventana a la Libertad said. There are around 500 of them in the country, holding 55,000 people, even though their total capacity is only for just 8,000. The news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back.
Health is our most important.
our business news, this is Cesar Vallejos. The increase in commodity prices experienced by the poorest Filipinos nationwide was the slowest in 13 months, according to data released by the Philippine Statistics Authority on Thursday. Based on PSA data, inflation for the bottom 30% of households slowed to 4.3%, the slowest since the 3.7% posted in December 2017. Inflation for the poorest in the first 5 months of the year averaged 4.9%. Inflation for the poorest was at 6.3% in April 2018. It was also in January 2018 when inflation breached the 4% level at 4.7%. Year-on-year growth of food, beverage, and tobacco index eased further to 4.5% in April 2019. Likewise, the annual increase in housing and repairs index decelerated to 4.2% during the month, PSA said. However, inflation for the poorest in Metro Manila increased to 2.6% in April from 2.3% in March. Nonetheless, it was still lower than the 6.3% posted in April 2018. Previously, economists said the poorest Filipinos are very sensitive to food prices. They said this can be explained by the difference in the inflation felt by all households and the inflation experienced by the bottom 30% or the poorest Filipinos. They explained that the weight of the food in the basket of goods used to compute the inflation experienced by the poorest 30% is 70%. In contrast, it is only 39% for all the households. The Department of Information and Communications Technology said the U.S. trade ban that affected Huawei will have little effect on the Philippine telecommunications industry, as Filipino telcos are expected to diversify their equipment suppliers moving forward. In a statement, the agency said the executive order of U.S. President Donald Trump that prohibited U.S. companies from engaging in trade with a foreign adversary will have little impact on the Philippine telecommunications industry, whose players have been doing business with for over the past decade. The local telcos have made pronouncements that they will diversify in their present and future procurements of equipment to make their networks more robust and future-proof, the statement read. For their 5G initiatives, both Globe Telecom and PLDT have taken Huawei as one of their equipment suppliers. However, both have also tapped other foreign tech companies such as Nokia and Ericsson for the same program. Despite the trade ban that may potentially cause a huge dent on Huawei's business, Globe President Ernest Cu said his group is still sticking with Huawei as its major provider of equipment, given that a large number of its existing infrastructure has been supplied by Huawei. Cu also added his group's plans for 5G development is not affected by the trade ban. The U.S. government has repeatedly raised security concerns on Chinese telco equipment, but the DICT believes Huawei does not pose a cybersecurity threat for the Philippines. The agency said the government will continue to require local telecommunications companies to monitor their networks through world-class cybersecurity audit teams and assure the government the respective network will not be compromised or they may suffer losing their license to operate. The same requirement will be imposed on the incoming third telco. Beijing accuses the United States of spreading lies about Huawei after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the telecom giant was not being truthful about its ties to the Chinese government. The Trump administration has infuriated Beijing by blacklisting the smartphone and telecommunications company over worries that China uses it as a tool for espionage and allegations of breaking Iran-related sanctions. Huawei has repeatedly denied that it works with a communist-led government.
一段时间以来，美国一些政客不断地制造关于华为的谣言，但是呢，始终拿不出各国要求他们提供的明确的证据。美国国内呢，也对美国政府挑起同中国的经贸战、科技战，那么这些在美国国内造成的市场动荡、产业合作受阻，也发出了越来越多的质疑。这些美国政客现在不断地编造各种主观推定的谎言，试图误导美国的民众。现在就像你刚才所说的，现在又试图煽动意识形态的对立，但是这个呢， 坦率地讲不合逻辑，应当改变动用国家力量对其他国家的企业进行打压，谋取不正当的利益，扰乱市场、破坏国际间合作的这样的错误的行径。
In an initiative to help address the ballooning plastic problem in the country, Nestle, the world's leading nutrition, health and wellness company, recently introduced the May Balik sa Plastic program, which will kick off next month at the People's Park in Valenzuela City. This program aims to help tackle the current plastic waste problem in the Philippines, and is in conjunction with the Nestle's global vision that none of its packaging, including plastic, should end up in landfills or as litter, including in seas, oceans, and waterways. The May Balik sa Plastic campaign can help reduce the amount of post-consumer laminates in landfills. Nestle, through its partnership with the city government of Valenzuela, DepEd Valenzuela, and Green Ants, will promote the value of recycling laminates and specific residual wastes among the younger generation. Schools and barangays will have points of collection or booths where students and street sweepers can easily bring their plastic laminates and used beverage cartons. For every kilo or half kilo of plastic, students will receive school supplies, while street sweepers will receive Nestle products. Nestle chose Valenzuela because it is one of the most progressive cities in Metro Manila with a real commitment to proper solid waste management. A new UN report noted that high trade tensions and policy uncertainty continue to damage prospects for economic growth. According to the United Nations World Economic Situation and Prospects mid-2019 report released in New York, the global economy is experiencing a broad-based growth slowdown amid unresolved trade tensions, high international policy uncertainty, and softening business confidence.
The overarching message is that the unresolved trade tensions that we've experienced and the high international policy uncertainty continue to damage the prospects for economic growth going forward. This increasingly challenging economic environment has significant consequences for the 2030 agenda, especially the prospects for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And this highlights the urgent need to strengthen multilateralism and to address the existing gaps in development finance. Even with these downward revisions, the risks are still on the downside. Escalating trade tensions, a sudden deterioration in financial conditions, or the accelerating effects of climate change all could trigger a sharper or more prolonged economic and growth slowdown, inflicting significant damage on development prospects. More comprehensive and well-targeted policy responses are needed to tackle the current growth slowdown. For example, improving fiscal management and strengthening productive investments are necessary to boost the world economy's prospects for inclusive and sustainable development. It is increasingly clear that policies to promote sustainable development will need to look beyond GDP growth and identify new and more robust measures of economic performance that appropriately reflect the costs of inequality, of insecurity, and of climate change. We cannot afford to rely on economic growth alone to deliver the SDGs.
The report identifies several downside risks that could trigger a sharper or more prolonged growth slowdown in the world economy. These risks include a further escalation in trade tensions, a sudden deterioration in financial conditions, and the accelerating effects of climate change.
In light of severe environmental degradation, a swift and radical transition away from fossil fuels is absolutely imperative. This will require a fundamental change in economic decision-making and in private consumption behavior. To accelerate this process, governments have several policy options. One crucial instrument in this regard is carbon pricing. The objective behind carbon pricing is to fix a fundamental flaw in the current economic system, namely that the emitters of greenhouse gases currently do not have to consider the wider costs of emissions. By contrast, by putting a price on carbon dioxide, we would make producers and consumers internalize these negative consequences.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to...
6 years in the making, Qatar's first ever underground railway system has opened to the public as the Gulf nation prepares to host the 2022 Football World Cup.
6 years in the making, Qatar's first ever underground railway system has opened to the public on Wednesday, the 8th of May, as the country prepares to host the 2022 Football World Cup. There was an air of excitement at the metro stations in the capital on Wednesday morning as the city's residents queued to purchase their tickets and ride the metro for the first time. Passengers were seen snapping pictures and taking videos of their first metro ride in Doha. Traveling at a speed of 80 to 100 kilometers per hour, Doha Metro is said to be one of the fastest and most advanced driverless trains in the world. The state-of-the-art trains imported from Japan are divided into 3 compartments: standard class, family section, and gold club. A single journey will cost 2 riyals for standard card holders, including family class, while a day pass will cost 6 riyals. A single journey will cost 10 riyals for gold club members, while a day pass will cost 30 riyals.
How was your first train ride, or is it your first?
Very good. Check on internet, you can see.
No, but you, in your experience, how
now was good, yeah, class is very clean, sorry. And a bit cold, yeah, but it's nice.
But do you think that you will be taking the train every day going to work?
Why not, yeah. And it's not going to be that cold during November and December, so yeah. I think it's looking great for the World Cup, yeah.
I think this will, I don't know about the nation, but the people living here, I think they'll be, more attracted to stay here, because right now people are not, they are feeling, they are not happy about it, but about the traveling and the places. But right now, because, the Uber...
Because their charges are pretty high these days, so...
For the common man, this is perfect,
This is perfect, yeah.
It's very cheap, it's very convenient, very comfortable.
Like us,
Yeah, we love it.
Qatar Rail announced on its social media account that during the first 2 days of its previous service, it recorded 86,487 commuters used the Doha Metro. This high ridership, according to the company, affirms the instrumental role Doha Metro will play in transforming Qatar's public transport sector. Still in its previous service stage, Doha Metro received positive comments from its first riders.
About the metro, it is perfect. That's what I want to. It is fast and also it is economic, because I left my car now in the Corniche. From Corniche until here, I take like 20 minutes. It is very good. If I use my car now, maybe I spend like maybe 1 hour, half hour, because of the traffic, also signals. One signal from there until here, it is a long time.
More fuel also.
Yeah, more fuel, petroleum.
So how do you think it will affect Qatar as a nation having this metro?
Less Land Cruisers on the roads, hopefully. hopefully.
After taking the train on his way to the inauguration of Al Wakra Stadium, one of the major stadiums constructed for the World Cup 2022, the Emir His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani himself expressed in his tweet his pride of the Doha Metro, referring to it as one of the most important infrastructure projects of Qatar. Doha Metro is expected to impact the Gulf nation positively, not only in the aspect of transportation, but also in view of reducing pollution and possibly boosting further Qatar's real estate sector. The country aims to run 75 trains to complete 37 stations and additional 2 lines by the year 2020. From Eagle News Qatar Bureau, this is Dian Liagas, and we are one with 25.
Stay tuned, we'll be back after these reminders. other news now. Iglesia ni Cristo members in Japan organized a cleanup drive in Tokyo. Here's Dennis Liu.
They are known for their diverse activities and projects promoting social and cultural awareness, public service, and aid for humanity worldwide. Japan is also not an exemption.
As Japan enjoys the week-long holiday, the Iglesia ni Cristo took such opportunity to extend a helping hand in keeping the community clean and green, as members of the church organized a cleanup drive in Hibiya Park.
Ganito pong aktibidad ng Iglesia ni Cristo na pinagtibay ng pamamahala. Pauuna po ng ating tagapamahalang pangkalahatan ng kapatid na Eduardo Manalo ay naglalayo na may pakita sa mga tao, lalo na po dito sa bansang Japan, na ang Iglesia ni Cristo ay patuloy na kaisa sa pagpapanatili ng kagandahan, ng kalinisan, ng kapaligiran, na ito po ay nagbubunga ng maayos na paninirahan sa isang bansa o sa isang komunidad.
Kaisa po kami sa pangangalaga at pananatili para mamintina ang kalinisan at kapayapaan at kaayusan ng kapaligiran natin. Kaya ipinapakita po, lalo na po ng mga kaanib sa Iglesia ni Cristo, ang pagmamahal natin sa environment.
Despite their daily schedules, members of the church eagerly participated in the event, expressing their unity with the congregation and obedience to their leaders.
Nandito po ako ngayon kahit na busy po ang aking schedule dahil po sa pagkaisa po sa ating tagapamahala ng pangkalahatan.
Kapatid, nakipagkaisa sa pananawagan ng tagapamahala na pagkakaan ng ating paligid at nakikita din ang mga kapatid na maigting din silang datingan upang isa sa nagubigin ng pamamahala.
Kami sa aktibidad ng Iglesia ngayon sa cleanup drive dito po sa Hibiya Park. Isang famous park dito sa Japan para po makipagkaisa sa pananatili sa pagiging malinis dito sa bansang Japan at pagkikipagkaisa din po sa gawain at aktibidad ng pamamahala ng Iglesia po ng Iglesia po. Kaisa po kaming mga tagal-lokal ng Miyashiro, kaisa po kami ng pamamahala sa ganito mga aktibidad.
Aside from obediently heeding the call of the church administrations, INC members also cherish the time as an opportunity to bond with family and friends, as well as strengthen the relationships with brethren.
Sa ganitong kaparaanan ay lalo na paglalapit-lapit din ang damdamin ng mga kapatid sa loob ng Iglesia ni Cristo. Kaya po na inyong nakikita, sama-sama at masigla ang mga kapatid. Ang totoo ay nariyan ang mga magulang, kasama po ang mga anak, na bahagi na rin ng kanilang family bonding.
Kasama ko po ang aking pamilya.
Bonding time na rin po.
Nahanda rin po para mapag-banding-banding po kami. Di ba po mga kapatid?
Happy birthday to you!
Wait po!
We are one with 25! One with 25! One with 25!
Reporting from Hibiya Park here in Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu for Eagle News International, and I am 1 with 25.
Donating blood is not only beneficial for those who are in need, but also for one's own health. Moved by love and concern for their fellow men, Iglesia ni Cristo members in South Korea donated blood at a blood donation center in Yeongdong, Seoul. Christine Jewel Uyabot reports.
Members of the Iglesia ni Cristo held blood donation activity in South Korea. The blood donation drive was done last Saturday, 18th of May, in the Blood Donation Center in Myeongdong, Seoul. This activity was done yearly by the Iglesia Ni Cristo members here in South Korea. According to their district minister, this activity aims to help not only their countrymen but also ready to reach out in the people of South Korea. Iglesia Ni Cristo members who donated believe that more than the good benefits for their health, the more important thing is to reach out to others and help save lives. This is already the third time that the Iglesia Ni Cristo held blood donation activity in South Korea. Donors will have to pass the initial screening first before they can donate blood. Among the eligibilities are people who have lived in Korea for more than 1 year, excluding the period for traveling overseas, and if a donor has over 90 days of accumulated traveling history outside Korea within a year, the donor is eligible to donate blood after 1 year from the date of last re-entry to the Republic of Korea. A donor cannot give blood if the donor has traveled overseas within 1 month. People who speak Korean or have an interpreter can donate blood. For more inquiries, you can call 033-811-0072 for Korean or 033-811-0087 for English. You can also send an email to bloodinternational@redcross.or.kr.
Totoo ay ang blood donation na ito ay bagamat ang marami mga kaanib po sa loob ng iglesia, pero ang mas lalong marami na makikinabang nito ay ang mga Koreano na nangangailangan po ng dugo. Ang Iglesia ni Cristo po ay lagi na nagsasagawa ng ganitong blood donation activity na kung saan ay nilalahukan po ng maraming mga kapatid upang tugunan po ang panawagan ng ating pong tagapamahalang pangkalahatan na patuloy pong magpaabot ng tulong sa mga nangangailangan. At dito po sa bansang South Korea, ang isa sa maitutulong po ng Iglesia sa komunidad po ng bansang ito ay ang patuloy po na pakikilahok ng mga kapatid sa ganitong aktibidad na blood donation po.
This is Christine Jewel Uyabut, your EBC correspondent from South Korea, and I am one with 25.
In Colombia, Iglesia Ni Cristo's Aid for Humanity reaches Bogota and helps Venezuelan migrants. Nadine Dueñas reports from the scene.
Faced by the troubling global issue of hunger and poverty, people here in Bogota, Colombia live one day at a time, many not knowing what awaits them the next day. In an effort to help ease their burden, an outreach mission was brought here by the Church of Christ and the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, giving those here in this part of Colombia a reason to smile and many hope for a brighter future.
Bueno, no sé, imagino que muchos en el mundo pues ya saben la realidad que vivimos en nuestro país, pues, y motivado a eso pues uno sale acá, que entre comillas lo más cerca a nuestro país, en busca de mejores oportunidades.
La situación en Venezuela está demasiado complicada. Una persona que gana 50 centavos de dólar por semana es muy difícil sobrevivir en un país así como ese. Incluso si viajas hasta el norte de Santander, que es parte de Colombia, puedes ver a los caminantes colombianos, caminantes venezolanos, colombo-venezolanos también, porque en la época que Venezuela tenía una buena posición económica, muchos colombianos están allá, ahora se están viniendo, caminando miles de kilómetros para llegar acá a Bogotá, a diferentes partes, Ecuador, Perú. Es difícil.
Entonces, los regulares son las personas que entraron con su pasaporte sellado, con pasaporte además, y se les entregó un permiso especial de permanencia que se llama PEP, y esas personas regulares pueden acceder a todo lo que un colombiano normal puede acceder: salud, educación, pues educación digamos que pueden acceder los irregulares también, pero todo lo que tiene que ver con salud, que es lo más importante, les pueden dar trabajo. Entonces los regulares están muy bien. El tema es con los irregulares llegan sin pasaporte, vienen caminando, no tienen ningún documento de identidad, y desafortunadamente por leyes colombianas ningún dinero público puede ir destinado a ayuda a una persona que no tenga identificación, que no se pueden identificar de ninguna manera. Y ellos son los que realmente más lo necesitan, porque no pueden acceder a salud y no pueden tener un trabajo formal. entonces pues son los que más ayuda necesitan, y acá lo que se orienta es a o consiguen su permiso especial de permanencia, o les ayudamos a conseguir colegios, ayudarles en toda la parte psicosocial, a orientarlos legalmente qué pueden y qué no pueden hacer.
At the Centro Integral de Atención al Migrante here in Bogota, Colombia, we are here on behalf of the Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ. And today we had our Aid to Humanity, in which we are here to help alleviate poverty and to do our part to work hand in hand with the government here in Bogota, Colombia. We know that poverty is a problem, and a majority of them came from Venezuela. And we understand their situation now, they're hurting, and today we were able to extend our help through our care packages. Not only that, we also taught the words of our Almighty God written in the Holy Scriptures.
The Aid to Humanity held 6 outreach missions in 4 venues in the span of 2 days, in Centro Integral de Atención al Migrante, norte de Bogotá, Salón de Eventos Club El Faisán, norte de Bogotá, Torres de Nueva Castilla 2, Tintal, sur de Bogotá, and in Reservado San Diego Bosa, in sur de Bogotá. Hundreds of recipients created lines that went out the door in all 4 venues. They received care packages that included personal hygiene products, groceries, and canned goods.
No está de más reiterar nuestros más sentidos agradecimientos por estar acá, por toda la disposición de ayudar, por no más con venir a compartir con nosotros, lo cual es bastante significativo ver lo que estamos haciendo, porque yo creo que también esto es el primer paso para una gran alianza de que podamos seguir ayudándonos mutuamente en todo esto, y realmente estamos muy agradecidos.
Pues me pareció muy bien porque incentivan a conocer un poco más sobre Dios. Aparte de lo que hicieron de la ayuda, pues, sobre la comida, por decirlo así, es algo también que es muy bueno. De repente a muchos nos beneficia eso porque nos ayuda un poco en la parte económica.
Magnífico, magnífico. Están obrando en el nombre del Señor y maravilloso que las personas se puedan beneficiar. Que sigan haciendo esto. Sería maravilloso, como te digo, hacer una convocatoria más grande, que más familias se unan a la iglesia y que más familias resulten beneficiadas de su generosa labor aquí en Bogotá.
This outreach mission continues in various Latin American cities. Reporting from Bogota, Colombia, I'm Nadine Dueñas for Eagle News. I'm 1 with 25.
And that's it for me. This is Cesar Vallejos. I'm 1 with 25. Back to you, Alma.
Welcome back. Hollywood star Arnold Schwarzenegger was attacked on Saturday by a man who kicked him in the back at a sports event in South Africa that the action hero was hosting. Take a look. The bodybuilder and former politician was chatting with fans at the Sandton Convention Center in Johannesburg when a man took a flying leap and kicked him high in the back. Schwarzenegger was in Johannesburg for the annual Arnold Classic Africa, an international multi-sports festival.
So I have no idea how this guy was envisioning that he would get a Lamborghini by kicking me in the back. It just there's no pencil out. So obviously the guy was on some special South African drug. So whatever it was, but I'm actually very happy because today no one drop kicked me as I was walking through the auditorium, so it was very good. So things are improving.
Now, a man is seen attacking the former governor of California from the back with a flying kick. The attacker hits the floor as the 71-year-old Schwarzenegger stumbles momentarily after contact. Arnold had just finished filming a girl jump roping on his phone at the event when he turned around and was forcefully kicked in his back, a move that caught him off guard and pushed him forward among bystanders. A security guard can be seen immediately tackling the man who kicked him to the ground in the video as onlookers move around and gasp over the incident. It's not clear why the man attacked Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger then took to social media to reassure fans there was nothing to worry about. Thanks for your concerns, but there is nothing to worry about. I thought I was just jostled by the crowd, which happens a lot. I only realized I was kicked when I saw the video like all of you. I'm just glad the idiot didn't interrupt my Snapchat. Organizers of the festival also confirmed that the former movie star was fine and would not lay charges against his attacker. All right, to France now at the Cannes Film Festival. Sylvester Stallone looks back on his illustrious career. He said, "I didn't think I was going to make it." Take a look.
No, I didn't think I was going to. I thought I was optimistic, but I realized I had some physical flaws. It was hard for me to understand. It's hard for me to speak sometimes because I had an accident when I was born. So this side of my mouth always makes you talk like that, you know. How you doing? So when I would try to get jobs in commercials, the director would go, "What are you saying? What language is that?" I knew it was bad when Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "You have an accent?" I go, "I have an accent? Excuse me? What?" I really don't separate myself from anyone else. I think that all of us have a thread that goes through us. We all understand what fear is, what loneliness, what isolation is, what victory is, what failure is. And I think if you can tell that story, they can relate to it. It's been a long time, but I love just the...
And with that, we end tonight's program. For everyone here on Eagle News International, I'm Alma Angeles, always one with 25. Good night.